TrueVerb by Waves combines very powerful control of reverb algorithms and exceptional sounding reverb effects. TrueVerb's features and capabilities, much like many of the other plugins demonstrated here, are quite broad. In this movie tutorial, we will not cover every parameter in great detail, but provide an overview of key concepts and parameters to help you get up and running quickly. Make sure to peruse the Waves user guide for further information and other helpful examples. Now let's check it out. There are two modes that can be used with TrueVerb, send and through. Send mode is where TrueVerb is applied to a mono or stereo auxiliary input and fed by a virtual bus so that other channels or tracks can be routed to it. To use TrueVerb in this fashion, make sure to disable the direct signal with the appropriate button shown here. Through mode is used on a master fader, virtual bus master fader, channel, or track. The direct button should be active, and then the balance of the direct, early reflections, and reverb tail can be adjusted separately. Let's go over the controls. The top window is the time response graph, and it displays room size, distance to source, early reflections, pre-delay, reverb tail, and their relative levels. Let's apply TrueVerb to the master fader in through mode of a jazz session while explaining the many controls. First is the dimension control. It changes the character of the early reflections to create a variable 2 to 4 dimensional space. 2.0 equals 2-dimensional space, 3.0 equals 3-dimensional space, and 4 represents a 4-dimensional space. Listen while we adjust it. Room size is shown in cubic meters, and it can be adjusted from 50 cubic meters to 20,000 cubic meters. You can also click and drag the blue arrows in the graphic display to change the room size. Distance is also represented in meters, and it controls the apparent distance from the listener to the input source. You can also adjust this by dragging the yellow arrows left or right. The Link toggle button links the reverb, room, and pre-delay together. When activated, the reverb and pre-delay match the level of the last reflection in the room. The balance control is used to mix the balance between the reverb and direct plus early reflection levels. Positive values increase the reverb and decrease the direct plus the early reflections. Negative values do the opposite. It can be controlled by dragging up or down in the field or clicking on the blue crosshatch in the graphic display. Decay time is measured in seconds and determines the time it takes for the early reflections and reverb tails to fade out. Pre-delay control is measured in milliseconds, and it changes the perceived delay time before the reverb begins. Notice it is grayed out when the link button is engaged. The density display controls the density of the initial buildup of the reflections in the reverb. Percussion sounds usually sound better with higher density settings. The next graphic display with controls is the frequency response graph. The early reflection low cut with the in-out switch acts as a low frequency shelving filter for the early reflections only. When active, it is shown by a yellow line in the low frequency portion of the graph. The rev shelf is measured in decibels, and it is a high-frequency filter for only the input to the reverb. It is shown as a blue line in the graphic display. The ER Absorb is intended to simulate the absorption properties of a real room's surfaces. It only affects the early reflections. A low setting simulates a room that is dull, such as one full of carpet. It is shown as a yellow line in the graphic display. The frequency sets the corner frequency for the shelf and ER Absorb controls. The next set of controls are for the tone shaping of the reverb signal only. There are low and high frequency shelving filters that control the high or low damping for the reverb signal. There are also controls that set the corner frequency for these two filters. Notice that the blue crosshairs in the graphic window can control the corner frequency and damping factor at the same time. The last section to cover is the input-output section. The input gain allows you to trim the input signal to avoid clipping. Below this are the in-out toggle switch and level controls for the direct, early reflection, and reverb signals. To the right are the stereo output VU meters with the numeric infinite peak hold beneath the meters. Above the VU meters is a clip indicator that turns red and shows the word clip if your signal reaches above 0 dB. To reset the peak values, click directly on the meters, and to reset the click box, simply click on the box. Let's pick from one of the factory presets as a starting point and create a usable reverb for this mix. TrueVerb is also great for remastering a live board mix recording, as you can add depth and stereo dimension without phase problems. I've also used it for creating endings on remixes and all-around reverb processing. As mentioned in the intro, this plugin has much depth, and we've only scratched the surface of its real capabilities. Make sure to check out the Waves user guide for other pertinent information and some great user examples.